computer. I'm going to go next out of this, just so we can see that. And start. Perfect. A classmate of all of yours is actually using the time that we just saw on the top right to really see exactly where they want to take notes at. So if anybody else wants to take that suggestion, feel free just to kind of use our time, which is like 5:37 right now, and kind of adjust it to exactly where I'm going on my rant at that time. I think it's a really cool way of actually tracking what we're talking about and when. So if anybody wants to take that, I do highly recommend. I think it's a very, very smart method that they're using. So, all right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get this stuff. Perfect. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Welcome, Launch Code Nation, to another rendition of our Launch Code lecture. I hope everyone out there is having a fantastic Friday Junior or Thursday, however you want to call it, because it is a sunny, hot day out there, and it just makes everything brighter when the sun's out. So hope everyone's having a good day. Let's see there. As you can see, our gift today is getittogether.com, because today we're going to learn how to get it together. We're going to use some objects and some other things that we've seen in the past to get our stuff a little bit more organized, a little bit more together. So let me go actually on. Oh, I need to actually. There we go. So as always, first we're going to start with announcements. Announcements today is first studio review at 8 p.m. As always, feel free to come back in. We're going to go through that studio about objects, and it will always be recorded. So we'll be out there if anybody wants to see it. So feel free to come in. We'll be chatting. We'll be asking some questions, and we'll be getting through that studio. I did not love, but I thought, I kind of did love it, that everyone's face after the last studio just came in completely mad at me. So that's completely fine. Come in mad with me, but come in mad with questions, and we will go through them. Additionally, what I did not have time to put up here is another announcement we have. I know we just got done with assignment 1, but I wanted to bring up assignment 2. Yes, we have a second assignment, and it is coming for us. It will be due on June 21st. June 21st. But what I do want to let you know that this is not going to be a drop assignment. It will be a very important assignment, but it will not be a drop assignment. It still does have to be turned in order to continue on, but it wasn't as harsh as a turn-in date as assignment 1. There'll be more about that as we move forward. I just want to start putting a little bug in your ear there. So let me go up to the lecture questions. Go. All right. So on to the lecture questions, about the lecture questions too. If you do post things after lecture, I'm not going to be able to see them. I'm looking at the lecture questions channel just when lecture is going on. So if I don't cover that question, feel free to direct message me or your TF if you want to get that answered. I see, do we have class next Thursday? That's actually a good question. I thought we did, but I could also be completely wrong. Clark, are you on the call right now? Any TF, if you know, if we do or do not have class, feel free to direct message me, and I'll announce that. But I do not exactly, I thought we did. So we might not, take it with a grain of salt. We will figure out that by the end of lecture. I'm gonna make a note of that right now. Thursday. Are you talking about next Thursday, I guess? Because today's Thursday. I'll have to look up that. Good question. Already stumping me on the second question here today. Okay. Well, that is all the announcements I have. You all ready to get started? Everybody ready to get started? Yeah? Kim, you ready to get started? Jason, you ready to get started? Let's do this thing. That's all I have on my screen right now. Everyone else is turned on. Okay. Okay. We'll take a look. Let's see. 1 second. We might have gotten that. There is a thing for attendance. Oh, there might not be lecture on Thursday. If there isn't, I'll be announcing that on Monday. So stay tuned for that. But we'll see what's going on with that. Yeah, just pop up. Okay. Okay. Let's take a deep breath. And let's get to it. What I want to the start of this lecture is that everyone take the mind of a compiler. You already probably are beginning to become a small human compiler yourself while you're looking over your code. So let's go ahead and run through some code and see if it actually works. Tell me what this output would actually be here. What would be our output for this particular code? We have let cat name equals Nacho and if statement below. Oh, and I am completely being a total terrible host. I didn't let anyone unmute themselves. Feel free to unmute and let me know your answer here. What is the output?
Meow.
Meow. Thank you. I just want to hear a bunch of people meow this morning. That's what I want to hear. All right, output meow. Awesome job, because we know that cat name is actually equal to Nacho, so that if statement will be false. If statements only get triggered if the conditional is true. Therefore, we'll go to that else statement and print meow. Fantastic work, everyone. Let's move on. What would the output here? Take a very close look at it.
Break.
So break is a keyword, but it won't necessarily be our output. Our outputs will come
0 and 1.
0 and 1.
Very good. It will be 0 and 1. Why is it 0 and 1? Because we have a for loop here. Let I equals 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. Console log I. The first iteration, I will be 0. 0 is not equal to 1, so we skip over this if statement and we repeat. We increment our I, so now I will be 1. Console log I of 1, so it's now 1. I 1 is equal to 1, so then we break. So we get out of this loop. Hence, our output will only be 0 and 1 in this example. Very good. Now let's move on. What's going to be the output here?
Meow.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Very good. It will be nothing. Trick question. I'm sorry. But yes, it will be absolutely nothing because we only created the function. We did not call the function to run. So therefore, it will not console log anything. Remember, functions have to be created and then called if we want them to run. Great job. How would this? Will this work?
No.
No.
Very good. It will not work. We cannot do 2 assignments to 1 variable on 1 line. This is not possible, and you'll get a very big error. So this is not something we ever want to do. So definitely take note of this if you ever did try it. We cannot not do this. So perfect. Possum. And I was like, what was that thing saying? We are well on our way. Great job, everybody. Those are our beginning warm-up things. So let's start with a very, very complicated task. Let's build a cat. We're going to bring in our cat Nacho that we just talked about in those past examples. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a few extra things to this Nacho here. I think if I ever had a cat, which the cat has to act like a dog, but I'd still have a cat, it would definitely be Nacho. So we're going to name it Nacho here for this example. And then the cat's age is going to be 7. We're going to have 2 favorite toys for this cat. It's going to be a mouse toy, not a living mouse. I'm not a terrible person. And also a feather toy. And then finally, we're going to have a Boolean down here. Good cat equals true. Remember, Booleans are those trues and falses. Now let's talk about another scenario. Say we wanted to not only have 1 cat in this code base, but we wanted to have another cat, maybe a tiger. Well, we'd bring in those values as well. So now we have 2 cats here, 1 house domestic cat and a tiger, but now we have 8 variables here to keep track of these 2 cats. This is fine, everything's fine. But what happens if we bring in a 3rd cat? Or have to bring in all of those variables as well? We need to keep track of all of our cats. Maybe we become crazy, awesome cat people, and we have a lot of cats. We're going to have a crazy amount of variables. That's not exactly what we want. It's going to get a bit out of hand to track all of these different cats' variables, even though they're all the same. Remember, all 3 of these cats have names, ages, favorite toys, and good cats. There's nothing different about the variables. It's just that they belong to different cats. So my question to you is, wouldn't it be so much easier to actually take the values that belong to an individual cat and somehow compartmentalize, see, I'm practicing that word every time, compartmentalize these values into maybe a box, some kind of box, to box it all up. And we bring those values into this box, and then it's there, and we keep that. So now we have it all organized. We have our 1 cat here, Nacho, and all of its values in a single box. Isn't this a beautiful dream that we can actually do this in code? Well, it's not a dream, as you could probably imagine from my tone of voice and where we're going with this. It is a true reality of what we can do with information. And what we can do here is bring in a concept called objects. Objects. So what we want to do is that we want to take these values. And before we move on, we're going to go ahead and come over to our code base, and we're going to start with Replit here. And we're going to bring in those values. We're going to say, let our cat name equal to Nacho. We're just going to code here for a little bit, just because we just got our fingers on the keyboard. Cat age equals 7, which is going to be a number. Let our cat fave toy, plural, equal mouse, and then feather. Perfect. And let good cat, which is going to be a Boolean, equal to true. Nacho's a good cat, while that tiger was not a good cat. All right, so we have all of our 4 values here. Again, it's very, very hard to just keep track of this if we had to, again, make 5 to 10 cats. It's not going to be fun. So let's go ahead and explore how we can utilize objects to make our code base a little bit more simplistic. So we're going to build an object. Oh, Melanie, absolutely. Let me go ahead and do that. Just before we move on, I'm going to close that to the left. All right. Let's go ahead and use objects here to maybe compartmentalize, simplify, box up our information. How we begin creating an object is we are going to say let cat1 equal curly brackets. And then we're going to bring in our information. We're going to bring down cat name equals Nacho. Now, this is kind of something we've seen in the past, but we're actually going to change this up for objects. We're actually going to put in a colon there and then have Nacho on the right-hand side. So it's going to be cat name colon Nacho, still in quotes, because Nacho is a string. And then instead of a semicolon, what we're going to bring in is a comma. This comma is going to tell us that there's going to be more values to our cat1. So let's go ahead and do another one. We're going to bring down cat age here. Again, answer to yourself, what do we put instead of the equal sign for objects when we want something, cat age to equal something? We put in that colon there. Right there, we just did 2 values. We just started creating our object here. So before we go any further, let's go ahead and actually explore this object in a little bit more detail. We have let our cat1 equal those curly brackets. Remember, objects, to create them, need curly brackets. What do they need? Curly brackets. There we go. Now I see faces lifting up like, what did he say? Yes, curly brackets. That's how we got to start building our object. We need to have that information inside of there. So let's go ahead and start putting information inside of there. We're going to bring it into our Nacho and our age 7. So let's take a look first at cat name here. You've heard what this is before. It's nothing new, though we haven't seen it in its true form yet. This is what we call a property. This is a property, aka a variable inside of the cat name Nacho. We start on the left-hand side here with cat name. Cat name is the property name. This is very important. The left-hand side of the colon is the property name. The property name. On the right-hand side, we have the property value. The property value. In the middle, it is both separated by a colon. And then at the very end, if we have more information, we end that line with a comma to say that there's more information. So this is our object. We have begun creating this. To think of an object, what it is that it's not necessarily like a variable per se, how we have been, or like a string or like a number. It's more like in a container. We've seen containers before. It's a container for information that houses related things. So if you're asking when exactly do we use objects, we need to use them when we house information that's very, very similar to each other. So let's go ahead and see this object right now in action. We're going to come down here and create let cat1 equal, and then we're going to bring in cat name colon, and we're going to have a string here. So we say Nacho, and then we end it with a comma. Then we're going to say cat age, and it's going to be 7. Now, as you can see here, we have two different values, Nacho and 7, that are two different data types. Just to note right now, objects can contain any data type. So we have a string for cat name and a number for cat age. So here we go, we built our object. We're gonna take a pause here, take a close look at this. And I'm gonna give you one more bit of information. Just like our variables within our programs, the property names, cat name and cat age, must be unique. They must be unique. I cannot add cat name down here and say Stark. This right here will cause an issue with our program. We cannot do this. So take note of that. All right, so we're gonna pause here just for a moment and we're gonna go over, or I'm just gonna open it up for questions about our first object that we have started to create. So feel free to throw it at me.
Kyle, quick question. So did I read this right? That I heard what you said about the unique name. We couldn't carry that unique name to like the next object. That the next object also has to have a unique name than what was in the first object, correct?
Are you talking between two objects? So if we
That's
create
correct.
a cat2 down here, maybe?
That's correct. We created cat2. We couldn't put cat name. We would have to put like cat name 2.
You could. You absolutely
Okay.
can.
Okay.
That's what's giving us that benefit here. If we created two objects here, it's the names within those curly brackets have to be unique.
Oh, okay.
Within the curly brackets.
Okay.
Can a
Thank you.
property and a variable, yeah, absolutely. Can a property and a variable have the same name? Well, technically it's not the same name. If we had cat name here and cat name as the value, well, we have the name over here, but this is its value. They absolutely can. The same name can have the same value. That's completely fine. Names and values are separate. They just can't have two of the same names within the object. So very good question. Katie, does that help you?
Yeah.
Okay. All
So
right.
your only limits within the object.
Yes, you're only limited within that particular object, within those curly brackets. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. That would be more for a lecture chat. If it's anything pertaining to the lecture, please put it in the lecture questions channel. Lecture chat can answer that. But I'm sorry to hear that. Reach out to your TF if your Slack is crashing. All right. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody once again, and we will continue on. So let's dive a little bit deeper into objects here. We're going to bring back all that information. We have our cat name Nacho and our cat age 7, and now we need to bring in this one. Like I've already mentioned, objects can contain every data type. An array is a different type of data type. It's a container. So what we're going to do is first add a comma. Don't forget about that comma. You need a comma. I can't think of a better way to say you need a comma. We need to get a billboard that's like, please put your commas there. That is a one thing that even I still miss. Make sure you put your comma there. And once we do that, we bring in that property name, which is going to be cat fave toys. Why not? Because it was our variable name at the top. And then of course, we place our array in there just as we have before. Nothing's changed. It's all right, take a deep breath. Nothing's changed, I promise. We can just keep our arrays just how they are, nice and neat. Awesome. Let's move down to one more. Let good cat equal true. So for this one, it's a Boolean. So what we gotta do is that we're gonna bring in good cat equal or colon true after we added that comma at the very end. So as you can see in here, we are now storing strings together. We're storing numbers together. We're storing arrays with strings inside of them together and Booleans. Isn't that crazy? What a great day. We can put this all together into one big cat object. Do we need a comma after the closing bracket for cat's favorite toys? Absolutely, and you should see that on your screen. We definitely need a comma at the end of that bracket. So yes, 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 absolutely. Always put a comma at the very end of that line. All right, let's go ahead and add this to our cat. Come down here, and we said we're gonna put in cat fave toys. And I'm going to put that array in there. Mouse. I said feather. All right, comma, 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 comma. And then good cat. And Nacho is a good cat. All right. There we go. Let's see. If anyone has any questions about this, feel free to throw it in that lecture questions channel. I'm not going to unmute just right now, but let's see. Are commas not needed for true false booleans? It's not because it was a true false boolean. It's because it was the last line here. Very good question. Why don't we put a comma here? Well, because we're not appending any more information. If I put something down here that says just anything, food or something like that, tuna, then I would have to put that comma there. But as you can see now, I don't need to put a comma here. It's because it's the last line. That's why we didn't have to put the comma there. Remember, we use the comma to append things together. You can almost look at it like kind of like this, even though I don't like to look at it like that. Like a comma separates stuff. Sometimes it will. I mean, you can definitely put a comma down here if you want to. I believe it will still run. Let's see. Yeah, it'll still run. It's not that picky of doing that. Just letting you know that you might not see the comma down here, but if you just want to put it at the end, feel free. That's completely fine. I have to do that in my code, so no preference. Great questions, everybody. This is great. Everyone did drink coffee. Finally, I think Monday everyone was just like very slow. I was like, what's going on? Good. All right. No other questions I'm seeing in the lecture questions channel, so I think we're A-okay. I'm going to remove favorite food, tuna. And we're going to go back. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take all that data. We have created our first cat object. Everyone give themselves a self high five. We did that together. It's pretty awesome. We're now able to use some objects, and we're kind of seeing the basic uses of them. One thing I do also want to show you is that I want to show that we are kind of being a little extra namey on this thing. We have a lot of cats in here. Well, this is a pretty redundant. We already know we're in a cat object, so we know it's going to be the name of the cat. I know it's going to be the age of the cat, etc. So we're not necessarily going to keep naming things like this. What we're going to do is actually we're going to get rid of that cat and make it a little bit more simplistic for us. So instead of cat name, it's just name. Instead of cat age, it's age, fave toys, and is good instead of cat good or good cat. So I'm going to go back to my code and update that stuff. Say name with a lowercase a, fave toys, and is good. This is just naming convention. Of course, nothing why we named it that way won't break anything in our code. This is naming convention, just slight standard, and helps my OCD and brings down my heart rate. So that's why we did it. But I just want to let you know, because you'll see this in your assignment, it kind of named like this. So just wanted to bring your attention to it. All right, so let's keep moving on a bit. We have our object created here, and let me just check time. How are we doing? We're doing pretty good. All right, let's bring our cat in. All right, this cat's like, all right, I got my information, but we all know cats don't like to share, so we're gonna ask this cat a nice question. A little personal, but it's okay. Yo, kitty, what's your age? We wanna know what the cat's age actually is. Well, the question is, how do we actually get the age out of this cat? How do we get the information out of the object? Well, what we need to do is first, as always, when we're trying to get information for anything, we need to dictate where exactly we're getting that information from. We need to say what variable we're trying to get the information from, which is cat1. What variable are you trying to get? What cat are you talking to? And then we actually have to ask it for its age. How we do that is with that period age. This is how we get the property out. You've seen this before. You've seen something like this. When you're trying to get the length out of an array, what do? You do array.length because you're trying to get that property out. Same with cat.age. Though it's personal, the cat will give you its age if you do .age. So let's go through that. Cat1 is what the variable that holds that object, holds that information. Well, .age is the actual property's name. Again, that's why it's very, very important for it to be unique. We need to say what exactly the property name is going to be that we want to get the information for. So let's go ahead and just see this. So if I do cat1.age, the world doesn't blow up. We can do this. We still won't see anything on the screen, so what I'm going to do is going to put console log around it. so we can output it to the screen. So we run this, fingers crossed. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was like, what am I doing? Because I made 2 objects. Kyle, what are you doing? You're being all silly today. There we go. Let's try to run that. What I do is that I put cat1, but cat2 is where the actual age was. But that is something we can bring up real quick too. If we bring that back, this is what it was originally, and we ran that. We got back undefined. Why did we get back undefined? Because I was calling to cat1.age. If I go to cat1, does age exist in cat1? Sure doesn't. So we're going to get back an undefined. That's why I removed cat1. I renamed cat2 to cat1. And now cat1.age, age exists here. We run it, and now we get back 7. All right, so I see I missed some questions. So Ryan, we'll get to your question here in a little bit. That's a little bit more, that's a few next steps. So yes, we'll definitely get to that. Can you do comma and then fave toys in console log? If you're talking about this example, we absolutely can. We can put a comma here because console log can take in multiple parameters. We say cat1.favetoys. And we see we get back our array. What do you call a cat that's not yours? Not your cat. That is worth being in the lecture channels. I love it. Oh, buddy. How come age will still display without being console log? If you put it at the very end here, that's just a replit thing. So don't pay any close attention to that. Let's see if it actually runs. Does it? Yeah. What happens is that is literally just a replit thing. Do not worry about that, Sky. If you put a value here at the very end, it will just print it out. I think if I put like 10 down here and run that, it'll just put 10. So it's replit, being replit. Don't pay attention to that. It has nothing to do with our syntax that we're talking about now. All right. So let's keep going. I'm going to go ahead and keep that console log.cat1 in here, cat1.age. Fantastic. And let's go back to our stuff. All right. So I want to talk about the age one more time. We're going to ask this cat for its age, but in a different way. I'm going to break it to you. There's 2 ways to ask an object for information. The first one we just saw was with dot notation. Dot notation. The second one we're going to ask it with is with something you've also seen, bracket notation. We can ask for information from an object using bracket notation. So there are 2 different ways here that we can do this. Let's go ahead and see this in action. We're going to come down here, and what we're going to do is now put bracket, square bracket, and then put the string age inside of there. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and we still get back 7. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why exactly do we have dot notation and bracket notation? Kyle, doesn't that make just life confusing? Well, the answer is yes, but also because it's going to be helping us in different things, including assignment 2, when maybe instead of just putting our direct string of age in here, maybe we put a variable calling to something specific. Say, let my cat prop name, my cat's property name equal, let's say, is good. So what I can do here is take my cat's prop name and actually put it inside the bracket notation. Take very close attention to this. You can put a variable in here that has a string inside of it, run it, and we get back true. Look at that. Isn't that just mind-blowing? Someone give me a right? Like, what's it doing? Yeah, thank you. I just love it. Yeah, thank you. It's also on the recording. It just makes me all happy and giddy inside. Exactly. So we can use variables within those bracket notations to call to properties within our object. Now, I feel like I made a few enemies here with this conversation. So I'm going to open it up for questions here, if anyone has them. So feel free to yell them out at me.
Can you just break that down one more time?
Which portion?
Just the entirety of what you just said, just a little bit.
For sure, for sure. So what we're talking about is the dot notation, which I'll make a console log up here. Dot notation would be the
I get that part. It's more like this part, right? What you were putting
Okay.
the prop name in there.
So remember that the string is going to go inside of this variable, my cat prop name. So this string right here technically goes as a stored value, right? So in here, if we actually looked inside of my cat prop name, it would be is good.
Okay.
So we can call to this property using the variable's value inside of it. Remember, the variable is just a little capsule that has our information inside of it. So we use that and we can run that and we still get back true.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
So I'm just telling you one extra step above why we need bracket notation, because it gives us a little bit more flexibility when we're calling to information or values inside of our object.
Okay.
Why do you
So
get,
if
why do you get back true and not is good?
yeah, that was my question.
So what is the value of is good?
Okay.
True, but you have it in quotes, so doesn't that read it as a string?
Is good is a string, but what's the value of is good? What's the data type of is good? What's stored inside of it is good?
True, the Boolean.
True. True is stored inside is good. This is just referring to the name of the property's name. The property's name. The value inside of that property is a Boolean, which is true.
So could you do that without the quotation marks?
No, because is good is not a variable outside of our object. So if we take it outside of quotes, that has to be a variable then.
Gotcha.
So what we're doing is that we are inside these quotes. Think of this. What we're only putting inside of these quotes is the names of the property. So it can only be name, age, fave toys, or is good. Those are the only things we can put inside those quotes. That will unlock our value for us. Unlock our value for us, AKA will unlock true. It will give us back true. If we put in age here, it will give us back 7. If we put in name here, it will give us back nacho as a string. If we put in fave toys, you know what's going to happen. What's going to happen?
Mouse leather.
We'll get an
It's
array.
going to give us back that array. Very good. So yeah, remember inside those quotes, inside those brackets, we can only put our properties names. Name, age, fave toys, and is good. Okay, so let me go over here to the lecture questions. Could you read line sync responses into arrays within the objects? I would say that you could do a read line sync outside of the object and then save it into the object. But I would not say do it directly. Don't put your read line sync right here. That's not going to be safe. And we'll talk about why. But yes, I would not, you'd want to do it outside the object and put it in there. All right. Moving down, when it appears using dot notation would be more simple, when would it be more appropriate to use the cat one is good? Andrew, just to make sure that is good is wrapped in those quotes. It has to be a string. And the reason why you would want to use bracket notation is because maybe you have a crew or a cargo ship or something, maybe out in space, weird example, and you need to ask the user, what compartment do they want to get into? Maybe your compartment's names are object names or object names. So if they want to get into the fave toys compartment, the user says fave toys, saved in a variable, you can use bracket notation to unlock the value of that cargo ship or of that cargo container. So what I'm saying is that bracket notation gives us more flexibility or dynamic approach to unlocking values from an object. That's why we use bracket notation. Dot notation is always there, it's permanent. We know exactly what we want and it will never change. So those are the differences between the two. I hope that helps out, Andrew. Let me know if it doesn't. Ryan, but how does JavaScript know that you are calling to the isGood property within the objects? What if you wanted to create a new variable that was equal to the string isGood? So it knows you're calling to is good because you are supplying is good inside of those brackets. If you wanted to create what if you wanted to create a new variable that was equal to the string is good? That's completely fine. If you wanted to create a string, my string here, equal to is good, that's completely fine as well. As we already see that, we have is good here, but we're also using is good, the string, directly into the bracket notation. You still run it, and nothing bad happens. So remember that these are separate. We use is good here to call to that specific container. Is it because the bracket is it because of the bracket notation? It is, because we're using a string directly inside of here. So we're using the string directly in here. It's not a variable anymore. It's directly a string, hard-coded, if you will. Okay, awesome. Can you loop with the arrays within the object? Not necessarily. You will want to call to the array and then loop over it. And we'll go through some more of those examples at the very end here. We have to keep going here in a second. So with dot notation, you cannot call to a variable. So again, the difference between a dot notation and bracket notation is that dot notation, you have to say exactly what you want. You have to say cat1 dot is good. When it comes to bracket notation, you can put a string in here. Say the user inputs the string. It's more dynamic. And you'll see that possibly in the studio and or the assignment coming here very quickly. So just take note that dot notation is more structured, static, while the bracket notation is more dynamic or customizable, because we can place a string or a variable within those brackets. Okay, so I'm gonna have to move forward here. Take note of the questions. If I didn't get to it, I'm really, really sorry, but we do have to keep moving forward. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and there we go. All right, so here's that bracket notation that caused a little bit of controversy, and we'll come back to it as much as we possibly can. But let's keep moving forward. Let's say, what's your number one toy, Nacho? Well, let's talk about accessing that. As we saw, we can use bracket notation or dot notation. In this example, I'm just gonna use dot notation because I know exactly what I wanna call. I'm very static about this. So what I'm gonna say is where I wanna get the information from, cat1. So I say cat1, and then what property are we gonna be using here? What property? Who can tell me? Just mouth it out if you know it. Fave toys, fave toys. We're gonna call out to that array because we wanna get the favorite toys of Nacho. And then finally, the number one toy is gonna be in the 0th index. So what I do is I put that 0th index right there to get that particular value out of the array inside of the cat. Let's go ahead and see that in action. We're gonna console log cat1.faveToys, and then we wanna call to the 0th index of favorite toys. So I say 0 here. I run that, and it says mouse. We just got inside of the cat, inside of the array, and got the mouse. Look at that. We reached inside of a cat and then got a mouse out. Isn't that weird? Magician, coding, awesome. So that's how we access a portion of the array within an object itself. We can unlock that. All right, let's keep moving on. We're gonna take another glance at this. Like I already said, objects can store any kind of data type. We've already looked at strings, numbers, arrays, booleans. One more data type that we discovered last week, or at least we figured out it was another data type, was something that we can do to help our cat meow. Now answer to yourself, what could we do to have a cat meow? What kind of thing could we build here? And you're all probably starting to sweat and be like, oh gosh, it's back. And all I can say is it absolutely is. We're gonna build a function here that console logs meow. Now, as you might have noticed, this function doesn't have a name necessarily. And you all probably know why that is. It's because it's an anonymous function. Inside of this cat, we're gonna put an anonymous function for someone or the cat to meow. We're actually gonna give it to do an action, to give it a function. Let's go and see this in action. I'm gonna come up here now, say meow, say function, colon, console.log, and say meow. There we go. Oh gosh, what is this, Kyle? I was like, oh, it's so cool though, look at it. And what we're gonna do now is that we have declared the function. Now you're probably asking, can I put named functions in here? I wouldn't recommend it. Typically you wanna put anonymous functions inside of your objects. You wanna very much stay away from putting named functions inside of there. Anonymous functions will just give you more flexibility. And then you're gonna be asking like, Kyle, it's not technically anonymous, it's called meow. Like what the heck's going on? It's like, yes, I know, technically it's not fully anonymous, but it's called an anonymous function in this regard. And you're probably finally asking, which if no one's actually asking this, then I'm just gonna talk to myself for a little bit longer. How do we actually call meow out of this cat? Well, let me show you, everyone who's asking. What we do is always we call to that data variable cat1, where all of our information is stored. And then we call to that function, .meow. But what do we always have to include on the ends of functions? Always, always, always. We include parentheses. Very good. So what I'm gonna do is comment out console.log here. I'm gonna run this. And what we get back is a cat's meow. Isn't that, oh, I can't even think of it. Cat-tastic. I'm trying to think of some cat puns right now. Possum, but we already saw that one. Oh well. But this is putting a function within an object and then actually calling to it. Perfect. I love it, Kiki. Closet effect. Stop. Oh my gosh. All right. Need to pay this attention. Okay. But this is how we call to a function that's within this object. Now, we're going to go back over here. And though this might look weird to us because we're actually constructing this, this is not like anything you haven't seen before. We have already met some of these objects that have been helping us get through the class up to this point. For one, you've seen this before. Input equals require readline sync. Maybe you've seen const question equals require readline sync, whatever you want to name it. The fact is that input here was an object that has functions inside of it there to help us. That function being the dot question. So before you think that, oh, what is this object completely new? It's like, no, we actually have seen it before and it's saved our tush a few times. So therefore, we are just seeing now how to create these objects on our side. So this is exactly an object that we've seen, we've used, and now we know how to create. But I want to introduce you all to one more object before we're done here today. And that is, we're going back to high school, the math object. You're probably like, oh, math. But it's actually okay, because this math object does all the math for us. This is an object that contains functions and properties within it to help us do stuff. If you're asking yourself also, do you have to bring this into the program? You don't. This is a native object to JavaScript, meaning it comes with JavaScript right out of the box. So we don't have to install anything onto our machines or into our code. And I just wanted to show you a few things real quick that math can do. You'll see like a long list. Math has a lot of functions to it. One of them is the .min function. If you just do .min here, 1, 2, 3, we'll go over here and see what it does. Say math .min of 1, 2, and 3. Pop quiz, what's the minimum of 1, 2, and 3? Anybody got the answer? It's not going to print anything out, is it? Oh, and is replit just going to be just totally replit today? It totally is. Console.log. Can't wait to get rid of your replit. Oh, stop. We're going to refresh that. Everyone take a deep breath in. It's been a lot. I didn't even get to do any like fun trivia today or anything. We just had so much information to go through. There we go. Run that. And we get back 1. The minimum of 1, 2, 3 is 1. Now, one more I want to show you as well is this math.random. Now, it sounds kind of cool. What is math.random? Well, it gives us a number between 0 and 1, never actually being 1. And the computer just picks a random number 0 to 1 that's decimal and just gives it back to us. Let's go ahead and see that in action. We run that. It gives us this weird giant decimal thing back. Now you're probably like, okay, what could I possibly use this for? Well, foreshadowing, take good note of this function because it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So just take a close look at it and I don't know, just write it down and just be happy and we won't talk about it for at least a day or two. So these are two functions right here that are within that math object. You know how to create a math object, though we don't have to create it. You know how to put functions within objects now. You know how to put properties there. The last thing we need to go through is how to actually edit our objects. We know how to set everything inside of there, but one thing we didn't do is how do we update maybe our age of our cat? Well, great question, and let's absolutely do that before we're done here. What we're gonna do is that we need to redefine, let's say, the age of our cat. Nacho just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Nacho. And we need to update now from 7 to 8. So what we do is we say cat1, we got to call to the variable that holds that information. We say age equals 8. We could also say cat1.age plus 1. Either one you want to do. Console.log, and let's see what Nacho's age is now. Run that, and Nacho's now 8 with a weird random number being printed out below. Awesome. Happy birthday, Nacho. You're now 8 years old, which is still young for a cat, kind of. So there we go. We are now reassigning our variables. You can also go ahead and say cat1.favetoy. And we say maybe at the 0th index is no longer mouse. It's going to be scratch post. And then we're going to console log out fave toys. We run that, and we see that our mouse was updated to scratch post. So there we go. These are some examples of reassigning variables. If you're also asking if we put this to const and still do that, you're absolutely right, you can. Remember, const just means cat can't be reassigned. The object just can't be reassigned to something else. So everybody, that is what I have for you. We are all finished here. So what I'm going to do is go back, and you're probably all just asking, yeah, come on, mouse, come back. I'm going to mute you guys, and let's go ahead, and we have a few minutes here to answer questions. So go for it.
So at one point in my textbook, I read this thing about a move function, and I couldn't find it. It hit among the math functions, so I didn't know what else to do.
So I saw your post, and I don't exactly know what move function you're referring to exactly. Was it in an array? Was it in an object?
It was in chapter 12.7.
So I was confused on that too, and it's not, you actually have to like create it.
Okay.
Great.
I have something. Another thing for cats is it's PERS Day.
Oh, I saw that. Yes, thank you. I love the cat memes. All right. So with the move function, it sounds like you're going to have to create it. So go ahead and try that. Or look at that again. Johnny, if you need to work one-on-one, ask your TF, and we can see what, or they can actually help you out with that. Otherwise, reach back out to me and we can talk about it one-on-one. Oh, sorry. Cool. All right. Anybody else here? Okay, I'm seeing a few questions here. So can we pass in parameters into the function? We absolutely can, Puja. So right here, if we want to say num of times to meow.
I don't know who my TF is. I know who my TAs are.
Yeah, TA, sorry, TATF. I know it's been saying, yeah, either one. So what I can do is take that parameter, say num of times to meow, and then say I++, and then we console log that meow. There we go. So now, if I pass in meow to do 10 times, oops, excuse me. We run that, and a lot of meows, and then scratch post. So yes, you absolutely can pass in parameters into those functions. Very good question. I think I missed a few up here. Kevin, you're absolutely right. That is another alternative we could do is plus equals 1. Caleb, what would you do if you wanted to make sure all of your cats had different toys to play with? So what you would want to do is that we would actually create a second object. So if you wanted to make a second cat, cat2, then you could also put in different values here. So you could say tree or something like that and post. So that's a way you can manually make sure that your cats have different toys to play with. Is there another way that you were thinking about this? 1 second, Amy. Caleb, is there another question that, or another way you wanted to see that as?
Yeah, it was actually pertaining to the question I had on the exercise, where like the whole astronaut ID part of the exercise, where you needed to make sure that the astronaut IDs weren't equivalent to your other objects' astronaut IDs. So I just wanted a cheeky little way of getting you to help with that.
So if you wanted to do that, what you need to do is make sure you have a container that's full of your objects. So maybe instead of just having all these lined up right here, we make an array const or let of cats, and we have an array of cat1 and cat2. And now we could loop through each of our cats in our cats array and make sure none of our IDs are equivalent by using if statements.
Okay, that's how I set that up. I just didn't get it to ever work.
No, it's okay. So this would, if you're working on this approach, then you are on the right track from what I've gotten from the question. So keep at it.
Perfect.
How do you do the thing that you do like with the for loop? Like what you did to ask the questions, how do you do it if you wanted to ask each question in a random order, but make sure that it doesn't ask one question twice?
So that would be a for loop. And if we had to ask them randomly, then it would be a random number generator, which we have not talked about yet. So I don't think I can answer that just right now about objects.
Okay.
So yeah, so we'll have to keep that question, write it down, keep it posted, and we can get back to it in future sections.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So any other questions about this stuff, reassigning stuff, putting variables? And then actually we do have a question and I did not get to, and I apologize. Like we said, objects can have every single data type in it. Object is a data type. Objects can have objects inside of it. What do I mean by that? I mean, I don't exactly know what object is going to be inside of a cat. You know what? We will. We're going to say object, or we're going to say owner. And inside of our owner object, we're going to have the parameters of an owner. So we're going to have the name of the owner, which, look at that, we just used .name, or we just used name within there. That's completely okay. We're going to say Kyle is the owner of Nacho today. And my age is going to be 8. No, 28. I'm not 8 years old, 28. And so now we just built an object within our object called owner. You're going to be looking down here. So that is an array of objects. So you're going to have an array and then put your objects inside of that. When it comes to getting the actual value of, say, my name out of the cat, we always start with cat1 because that's where the information is locked inside. We're going to say .owner, and we're going to run that real quick. And we're going to see the owner's information here as an object and say I want to get the name out of my name. I'm going to say .name. I run that, and now I get Kyle with those meows still going. So I'm going to go ahead and comment that out. So that is an object within an object. Any questions in particular about that? So remember, we can put objects within objects. We can put arrays inside of objects. We can put objects inside of arrays. Everything seems really differently configurable. Just remember how things are accessed. If anything, we always start with where all that information is locked away at. We need to get things out of an array. We use bracket notation with our index inside of it. If we need to get information out of an object, we use dot notation with the name of the property, or we can use bracket notation with the name of the property as a string. These are all different ways we can contain information as well as access information. So everyone, any final questions before I let you all go into this fun studio?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you did the cat1.owner.name, could you do cat1 bracket notation owner.name? Like, could you switch it up?
Absolutely. Yep. You can utilize both types of notations. .name. We run that, it's still Kyle. And if you wanted to, you could even get weirder. And I believe you can do this. Just make sure. Yep. You can also do double bracket notation as well. But yes, if you just want to look at that, because that just looks nicer, yes, you can definitely do .name. All right, can you use?
For some reason my function it's not working. It says unexpected identifier, which is meow.
Okay, well, take a close look at this code then. Use this as a strong reference. The recordings will be out at 6, but I cannot look at personal errors right now. Feel free to reach out to your TA or TF.
Uh-huh.
All right. Can you show what array of objects would look like? Yeah, we just did that. You can use a string and array methods the same way, correct? I believe, Andrew. I mean, yes, if an object is locked inside of an object with a function, yes, you definitely can do that. Use string using dot notation. So yes, that is possible. Ryan, do websites store our account information as objects within objects? Technically, yes. Objects within object is a very common structure. Just because how you saw it, a cat's going to have an owner object associated with it. An owner is going to have a lot of information associated with them. So yes, objects within objects is a common structure to hold information. All right, everyone. It is 6:33, 3 minutes over time. But you know what? It was worth it because objects are fun. All right. Well, I hope everyone had a grand old time here. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. We are all